My name is Johnathan Trimble, and I'm a 28-year-old real estate investor and also run a real estate team of agents here in Kansas City. Today, I want to talk about the 4 pillars as well as some other negotiation tactics when it comes to purchasing property off market. This is really more for investors looking to buy property or looking to wholesale property, and really less on the agent side of things, although it really has built that side of my business as well. And I will touch on that a little bit. So really the big 4 things are what's going to be called the 4 pillars. This is the most important bits of information you're going to want to collect from your seller when you're in the living room, when you're on the phone, whenever you're essentially doing your appointment, whether that is an in-person or a virtual appointment. I've done them both ways. Last year, we did about 40 off-market contracts. That's not including any of my on-market transactions. And so I've heard and seen a lot of these different things with a lot of different sellers and personality types. I'm going to go in the order of what I typically go through when I'm going through my appointment. You can do these in any order, realistically. But that is condition, timeline, motivation, and of course, price. Those are the most important things that you need to discover from your seller. The first one is what I typically do is condition. It's a really good way to segue into the appointment and start to build up some rapport, kind of crack some jokes. Of course, when you're starting the conversation, you may not immediately jump into going through these questions, ask them how they're doing, how everything's been going, so-and-so. But when you're going through condition, even if you're doing this in person and getting it, and you can obviously clearly see the condition, you're still wanting to ask them questions about the property. So that way you can get them to understand everything that's needing to be replaced without walking around and pointing out what things needed to be replaced. No one really likes that. And, this is a much better way of getting that same point across. So you're walking through the property, of course, on the phone, you are getting this information to paint you a good picture, maybe before you go on the appointment, to get an idea of your costs, or if you are doing any form of virtual wholesaling. Otherwise, you're walking through the house with the seller, ideally right there with you. And even though you see the HVAC system is 60 years old, you're going to ask them, hey, do you know the age of the HVAC system? You're going to ask, do you know of any electrical issues? Do you know of any plumbing issues? Do you know how old the roof is? Are there any foundation issues? If you obviously aren't there in person, you're going to ask them, hey, when was the last time there were some cosmetic updates? And then you're going to ask about any other problems that would be really good for you to know. From there, I'm typically going into timeline. Again, like to get this out of the way. I can kind of build some rapport before you get to the 2 kind of heavier pillars, as I like to say. This can show you how motivated they are, especially if they need to move quickly. They're typically going to let you know. And it can be a really easy segue into motivation because you actually can, first off, they may tell you what some of that motivation is just based on that timeline. And if not, you can actually ask probing questions about the timeline in order to get some of those motivation questions answered. So the third one is going to be motivation. And this one is going to be more important than any other piece. And that's because you're going to tailor your offer around this. And this is how you're going to win and beat your competition. People oftentimes don't like disclosing what their motivation is. They feel like you're using it against them or you're using it as some leverage. And you can use it in that way. But really how we use it is we're trying to find some other term or some other condition that we can throw into our offer to essentially fit and, solve the seller's problem. So oftentimes they can get offended. And when that happens, you're going to want to just apologize profusely. Hey, that's my bad. I didn't mean to pry. I'm really just trying to understand the entire situation and see if there's anything that we could do to help, like any sort of resources or other way to tailor our offer to really kind of help you out. The more apologetic you'll be, the more that they might feel bad and even apologize, which can actually kind of get them to soften up. Because again, you are truly trying to help them. At least I hope you are. So find the pain points. And oftentimes there's more than one, and it's okay to keep asking, hey, is there anything else that has you kind of considering moving? Is there anything else you need to figure out before you'd be able to close? And this is really, again, as I mentioned, where you're going to be able to beat your competitors, renting the house back to them if they need, like, hey, I need a month or two somewhere to go. They may say that they don't know what to do with all of their stuff. So you are letting them know, hey, you can leave everything behind and we'll go ahead, we'll get it cleaned out. There's a lot of small nuances, especially when you're talking about people that are in tight positions where you may be able to swoop in and help them and get the deal done. Number 4 is going to be price. A lot of people think this is the most important, but it really is irrelevant, especially if there's motivation or they're needing a quick timeline or, of course, a super distressed property that's just not going to sell well in the MLS. Many times it's going to be really close to this estimate. They're going to take 10% off this estimate. They think it's really accurate. And you're going to want to ask them how they arrived at their number and dig into that a little bit further because, again, it might uncover some more motivation. They may be at their price because they know where their mortgage is and they know, hey, they have to sell this price in order to move in. Then you can kind of dig into what they need that money for, what it's going towards, and maybe you can help out on that side of things in some way, shape, or form. You can connect them to their next spot or something of that nature. So that's why, and if they're hung up on this estimate, they say it's this estimate, I always like to let them know, and this is true, that this estimate is just based on an algorithm. It's just looking at nearby houses and what they're selling for, and then it's taking a percentage of that based on the bed, bath, and square footage that Zillow recognizes. So they have no idea what the level of updates are, and typically what we're seeing is the Zestimate is pretty close to what the properties are selling for if they were to be fully updated. And that is always a really kind of tough one to overcome because they can just really kind of get stuck on that number. And sometimes they almost need to hear another lower offer from someone else before you're going to be able to seal the deal. So those are the 4 pillars. Those are the main things you always need to figure out. But there's also some other really good tactics that you can implement into these in order to get the deal done. This is something that I use all the time. We call it laying traps. It really only does work if you are going to be a true buyer. But I guess, some wholesalers do lay traps for agents, even though a lot of them are not quite true. But this is where you're going to you're educate them on what wholesalers do and how to spot them based on their contract and terms. You're going to point out that you're not going to want to go under contract with someone that's a very low EMD because they're likely not going to close. You're going to let them know that if they have assignment language or assigns in the contract, they likely are going to be looking to assign it to a third party. And if there's a very long inspection period in order for them to be able to back out or walk away. You never want to come from a scare tactic and say this will happen. You say, hey, look, I hope none of this would happen. I just want you to be aware of some things that I see happen every day. And you're going to go through those things and then explain to them what wholesaling is. So that way they fundamentally understand it and how, if that wholesaler can't find a buyer, how that could negatively impact them. The other really good method we like using is a pullback method. So you're almost acting uninterested in the property or pushing them towards a listing route or to your competitors. If you feel like their price is just way too high, you can say, hey, maybe you just need to go out and get a couple of other offers and come back to me. This can be a little bit of a dangerous way to go because sometimes you do truly push them out to a competitor or towards another option. But sometimes they can expose other motivation and say, whoa, hold on, wait, we actually do need to get this done within the next month. So we would like to hear your offer. And they can work themselves down from there even. So that's been a very, very powerful method. It's low pressure, kind of some reverse psychology. And then here's the one we used a lot last year, which is side-by-side selling. You can either act like you have a manager or a partner. Maybe you do. And you are really kind of being side by side with the seller. Hey, I'm on your side. Let's try to help you get the absolute most amount of money. You're going to kind of start to do that. Hey, let me go back to my partners. Let me see what I can do. Information like that. After you give your offer, you can say, if they don't like the offer, say, hey, where were you hoping to be? Hey, between you and I, if I were to go back to my manager and I were to be able to get them up to blank, would you be able to sign today? Get them to confirm what that number is, and if you can go get it back, and then go back and go at bat for them. Come back to them, hey, it was a lot of back and forth, but they did manage to say that they will do it if you can get this signed today. And that segues into our limited time offer. that's going to be hey, we will do blank if you sign within 24 hours. Otherwise, it drops down to blank. So maybe you're taking a couple $1,000s off if they don't sign within the next 24 hours. Sometimes this can help you from losing a deal, especially if you know there's a lot of people looking at it right now and your offer is really close or maybe at where they need. You can blame it on all sorts of things. You can blame it on how many offers you make, or let them know that you guys just like rewarding people that don't let offers sit out on the table. As of recent, we've actually just been very low pressure. It's worked great for us. I just have truly been fully uncovering what the seller's situation is and actually advising them. I'm a licensed agent, and most of the time, the seller's best interest is taking it to market. And a lot of people don't act like that. They don't say it. But we've been really kind of, as I mentioned, pushing people that route, even when they don't want to go that route. And it's gained this level of trust from the sellers where they don't even want to hear other offers. They don't want to, or they do hear other offers and they're higher and they still want to go with ours because they trust us, because we truly were trying to do what's best for them, even when they wanted to go the easier route. Again, the last couple of deals we've gotten have been from doing this. It just builds extreme trust. And I think it also leads to more referrals down the road. I think this is why, being licensed is just another tool in your tool belt that can really help you as an investor. But again, for a different spiel. Lastly, I do want to just talk about how the biggest mistake that you can make is making the situation about you. Make it about the seller. Solve their problems and you will get the deal. They don't care about how much money you're going to make or what your costs are. So stop going into, oh, well, this is going to cost me this much to get done, and we're going to have to replace this and do that, and we have to make at least $30,000. They don't care. At the end of the day, of course, it does have to make sense for you, but they're in a tough spot, and all they're worried about and can think about is getting out of that position. So again, solve these sellers' problems and you'll start doing way more deals.